right, so we're looking at 6.5 in your notes, and we're talking about interest. Where do we hear interest in our world? At the bank, right? We're talking about money. So interest can be a good thing, and it can be a not so good thing. When you're talking about a savings account, you can put your money into a savings account. And if you leave it there and you don't touch it and spend it, your money will actually grow because there's an interest rate put on it. And it'll grow throughout the time. You also, that's a good thing, right? It's like earning free money by just letting your money sit there. It's just free. There's also when you take out a loan, so like let's say we go to buy a car or a house or something like that, they tack on an interest rate. And so when you go and let's say you borrow $35,000 for a new car, okay, you're not just paying back $35,000, you're paying $35,000 plus how much interest, a percentage of interest that you agreed to. So it'd be like, in simple terms, let's say Ansley borrows $10 from Jerry for the spring fling. And Jerry's like, yeah, I'll give you $10, but I'm going to charge you interest. Each week that you don't pay me back is an extra $1. So Ansley's like, okay, and she agrees to it. So let's say 10 weeks, she has $10 and 1 week goes by. So now she doesn't just owe Jerry $10, she owes $10 and an extra $1. So now she has to pay Jerry $11. Well, let's say 2 weeks go by. Now she owes Jerry 12, and then another 13 weeks, and another 14 weeks. So if she goes a month without paying Jerry the $10, Jerry's gaining $4 extra. See how that works?
Can't you go to jail if you don't pay it?
You can't, like, if you take out, like, big loans and stuff like that, and you don't pay back your debts, they'll start with, like, foreclosures, and they'll take your stuff away from you, and then they can come after you, and you can't go to jail. But you've got to pay if you borrow it, you got to pay it back. There's just no way around it. So don't borrow anything you ain't willing to pay back and some.
Unless it's your birthday.
Okay, unless it's your birthday month. Okay, so interest. How do we get interest? How do we solve for interest? That's what 6.5 is all about. We're going to be looking at what we call simple interest. There's two types of interest. There's simple and there's compound. We're strictly looking at simple interest this year. You have this formula for simple interest. I equals PRT. You need to memorize this formula because it's not going to be given it to you. I memorize it as I equal part. Because it's a PRT, sounds like part. So I equals part. Well, what do these different variables stand for? Well, I stands for simple interest. This is the amount of interest that is being earned. Okay? That's the amount of interest being earned. Your principal is how much money you start with. Okay? So this is the money you start with. This is usually your deposit if you're putting into a savings or if you're investing it. It's a deposit. Or if you're borrowing money, it's the amount of a loan that you took out. That's your principal. Your annual interest rate is the percentage that you agree to. And the T is really easy. It's just time. But the important part about this is that it's in the number of years. This formula only works if it's in the form of years. So what happens if they give it to you in months? Well, you're going to have to convert those months to years. So to convert it to years, you'll take the number of months over, anybody have any idea what number we're going to put it over? 12, because there's 12 total months in a year. The bottom of our fraction is the total. And so all you have to do is take the information that you know, plug it into the formula, and find the information you don't know. It's pretty straightforward and pretty easy. Okay, so here in example 1, it says you deposit $500 in a savings account. The account earns 3% simple interest per year. What is the balance after 3 years? We want to go in here first starting with our formula. We always want to write our formula down. I equals part, PRT. We're going to go back into the problem and dissect it like y'all did with the frogs. We're going to take it apart, deciding what each number represents. So if you deposit $500, is that your I, your P, your R, or your T? Is it your principal, your rate, your time, or your interest that you're earning? It's what, Elias? It's your principal. Your key word here to let you know it's the principal is deposit. That's why we wrote deposit up under principal. Okay? The next number we have earns 3% simple interest. Is this going to be your I? Well, we already have our P. Is it going to be R or your T? R. Well, this is super easy because it earns simple interest per year. It's the percent. Anytime you have the percent, it's going to be your R because your R represents the percentage. What is the balance after 3 years? So this 3 represents the T. So I can take this now that I have it labeled and substitute into my formula over here. I don't know my I. I don't have anything labeled with I. I know my principal is 500 times my R, 3%, times my time, which is 3 years. And then I just plug in my calculator. 500 times 3% times 3. The little percent sign on the button.
45 more.
Alright, so my I, or the amount of interest, is $45. This is the interest that you earn. If you go back to our question asks what is the balance? Does this represent the balance? No, that's how much interest of free money I've earned. To find the balance, I have to take my original principal and add it to the amount of interest I've earned. So if I started with $500 and I earned $45, how much do I have in my savings account now? I now have $545. That is my total balance. Okay. So let's look at this one. It's going off the same example up top. It says, what is the balance of the account after 9 months? So this is still tied to here. But the only thing changing is instead of 3 years, we're looking at 9 months. So I have I equals PRT. I'm going to substitute. I didn't know my I. I started with a principal of 500. My rate was 3%, but my time is 9 months. Now we gotta be careful with that. What are we gonna have to do here? You gotta make it into a fraction out of 12, right? So I've got to do 9 over 12. So when I multiply all that together, alright, so you end up with a fraction, right? But because we're talking about money, we want to convert it. So Camden, when you convert it, what do you get? You get $11.25. But once again, the question is asking for the balance. So what are we going to have to do here? We're going to have to find the balance. We're going to have to add the principal plus the interest we've earned. So we've got to take 500 plus the $11.25 in interest we earned. So now, after 9 months, in my savings account, I would have $511.25. So if you can identify what the numbers represent in the formula, all you got to do is plug it in. And it's pretty straightforward from there. Okay? Alright, let's turn the page 15. And let's look at example 2. Example 2 is talking about finding an annual interest rate. Annual interest rate. What variable is that in our formula? The interest rate. What variable is that? If I have I equals PRT, but which one is the rate? The I, the P, the R, or the T? R. Interest rate is the R. So that's the part we're going to be looking at. So you deposit $1,000 in account. So which one is that going to be? If you deposit $1,000, is it the I, the P, the R, or the T? It's the P. It's your principal. Okay, that's the principal. I'm going to use a different color so it kind of stands out a little better. Alright, the account earns $100 simple interest. $100. Is it the I, the R, or the T? It earns $100 in interest. So this is your I. And then 4 years is going to be your T for your time. So if we come in and we plug things in, I is equal to 100. So 100 equals P, which is 1,000, times R. We don't have R, do we? So we just have to leave it as R, times the amount of time, which is 4 years. Can we do any combining like terms here? What can we put together? Alright, we could, but let's look at this for a second. Remember, we gotta look at it as 2 separate sides for right now. Looking at the right side, is there, or we can start with the left side. If I have 100, is there anything else on this left side that I can put with 100? Okay, so there's nothing I can do here. Look at the right side. Can we put anything together on the right side? 4 and 1,000. I can do 4 times 1,000, which is going to give me 4,000 times R equals 100. So now, to solve for my variable, remember I chop it, box it, do the opposite. I want to isolate that R all by itself, so I'm going to move that 4,000 over using the opposite operation, which is division. So 1,000 divided by 4,000, I would put in my calculator 100 divided by 4,000 gives me 0.025. But wait a second, our rate has been given to us in a percent. Can I change this to a percent? Okay. How am I going to change it to a percent? Maybe a little change the percent button on your calculator, which gives me 2.5%. Or to change a decimal to a percent, you just have to move the decimal 2 places, and bam, you have it. Okay? This try it is the same way. You deposit $350 into your account. Your deposit represents which variable? P, your principal. The account earns $17.50 in simple interest. The I. If it's earning interest, this is your I. In 2.5 years, which is your time. So if I have interest equals principal times the rate times the time, I can substitute the P with 350. I can substitute the I with 1750. I don't have a rate, so I can't substitute that, but I can substitute my time with 2.5. And so to solve for R, what do we have to do first? Combine like terms. If I split it and look at the two different sides, there's nothing I can do on the left side, but what can I do on the right side? Alright, so what is 350 times 2.5? So we have 875 times R equals 1750. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Move it with the opposite. So 1750 divided by 875. So 0.02. We want it as a percent. So I can move it 2 decimal places and it's going to be 2%. Okay? Let's look at example 3. This time we're finding the amount of time. So we're looking for the T at this point. It says a bank offers 3 savings accounts. The simple annual interest rate is determined by the principal. How long does it take an account with a principal of $800 to earn $100 in interest? So that sounds like a whole mumble jumble of words and mess. But I see principal and I see interest. So I'm going to start with my simple interest formula. I equals PRT. And I'm going to start plugging in things I know to figure out what I don't know. Well, I know I have 800. What does that 800 represent in my formula? The principal, P. Okay? I have 100. That's my interest. it's telling me that my rate is based off of my principal. My principal is $800. So these are the different rates. Rate 1 is if I have less than $500. Rate 2 is if I have $500 to $5,000. And rate 3 is more than $5,000. So which one is our $800 going to fall into? 2.0. So our rate is 2.0%. And we're missing our time. Can we solve for time?
Yes.
Yeah. How am I going to do that? Same way we did when we found the R up top. We're going to combine like terms. Can I combine anything?
Yes.
800 times 2% gives me 16 T, and then I have equals 100. So we're going to move that 16 over using division. So I have 100 divided by 16. 100 divided by, so you got to pay attention to your order.
6.25.
So 6.25 equals our T. T represents time. So our time is 6.25 years. Do I have to change that to a percent? No, because is time a percent? No.
Wait, did you times
800 times 2% gives me 6.25 years. All right, problem 3 is just like it. We're going to skip it. We're going to look at example 4. Example 4 says you borrow $600 to buy a violin. The simple annual interest rate is 15%. You pay off the loan after 2 years of equal monthly payments. How much is each payment? Where do we start? What are we going to start with? We're going to start with the formula. All right, let's start by writing our formula. That's where you should always start, writing the formula. If there's a formula, you should start by writing the formula. Can we fill things in? Okay? $600. What is the $600 going to represent? The P. That's what we're borrowing. That's the loan. That's what we're starting with. Okay, that's my P. 15% represents which one? R, the rate. Okay? And then the 2 years represents your T. So that means we're looking for the interest. So 600 times 15% times 2 gives me an interest of $180. Now, did my question ask how much interest did you earn? My question asks how much is each payment? Well, am I only having to pay for the $180? What am I having to pay for? I'm having to pay for the $600 I borrowed and the $180. So my balance I'm going to end up paying is $780. But they want to know if I break that up over 2 years, how much am I going to pay? It says equal monthly payments. How much am I going to pay each month? How can I figure that out? Divided by what? I heard 24. I don't see 24 up there. Where did we get 24 from? Paige?
There's 12 months in each year and it's 2 years.
There's 12 months in a year, and we're doing it for 2 years, so that means there's 24 months, right? So I'm going to take my total, divide it by the 24 months that I'm paying. How much am I going to pay each month?
$32.05.
You get that, right? 32.5. But what do we have to do? We have to put up. So it's $32.50 every month for 2 years. Will pay off your $780 loan. That's it.
That won't be